Any questions? Our final day.
Jaleel obviously isn't the biggest guy, but he's scored a couple of touchdowns for you in the red zone. I'm just curious, when you don't have that sort of size, what it takes to be.
I would say, great question. I think he's got good contact balance for his size, and I think, when there was a time when we talked about a change of pace type back. I said, he comes to my office, he's wanting me to call him a joker, and so we haven't done that yet. But I think that he's got good vision, and I think some backs are just hard to lay your pads on than others. Like, in other words, he gets tackled, but, he might just get quartered or. So I think he's got good vision. He's got very good feet, and I would say there's some strength in how he runs.
They've had obviously the bye week already, but they've been really good as a red zone defense so far. What have you seen from them in that?
Yeah, look, we go through the numbers, and they've been, near the top of the league. I don't, now it's 4 weeks in, so whenever. I like to see, the one thing they've been really good at is they haven't had or defended a lot of trips into the red zone. So there's a start, and so there's only, the film this week, you're going to the preseason, you're going to, because of that. And so, that's pretty impressive.
It's been well documented, Sean, you guys on the defense only have one first-round pick in Surtain. What does it say about the organization finding maybe these undrafted guys or late-round picks that are now key defensive guys and all that?
I think historically speaking, once they get here, we kind of have to go by what we see. Now, we've got some guys that we targeted as veteran free agents that we brought in, and then there's some guys that have, earned their wings, if you will, later round picks. I think that, I've said it before, I think that we root for all these guys. We root for our draft picks, and yet ultimately we gotta play the best players. And the locker room knows that. And if you get caught straying from that, then it's not a good thing.
Coach, you've talked a lot about trying to paint a clear picture from the offense around the ball. When you have injuries and different changes, how do you do that? Because you're never going to get a clear picture, but how do you find balance?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, there's that Shangri-La that you were chasing always, right? But it's just there's so many things that come up during a game, and at times I'm like, man, he didn't do, I'm not talking about the cue, the route or the tight end, and it wasn't done. And so then as teachers, we have to say, did we cover it well enough? And so when I say that picture, it's the right leverage on a block. It's the right technique on a route. It's the right footwork on a run. And all of that, in close games, when you look at the film, sometimes you get frustrated and you're like, well, am I coaching that well enough? I think you have to start inward and so sometimes we're longer out here because every little detail I think matters, and not just with receivers or offensive line play, and so when all those details get cleaner and cleaner, and then the picture for the QB becomes brighter and cleaner.
Coach, with the Thursday night game next week, do you start looking ahead this weekend, or how do you handle that in preparation for the short week?
So we did our study on it. Early on when they started, I felt like, man, we had a string of like 4 or 5 in a row. It felt like on the road, and anyway, scheduling-wise. And then pretty soon we honed in on a schedule. Look, I think for the most part we're walking through Monday. We're walking, they're off Monday with some film prep, treatment, and then you have 2 days of kind of like Tuesday would be walkthrough. Wednesday, we might move them around a little bit more and travel Wednesday night. And then I think it's important that it's the stuff they know by heart. So you got to be cautious or limit the amount of new thoughts on a short week. But most importantly, how do we recover physically and mentally? And I think I've been on the other end of that, where we came in Sunday night, they practiced, and it's tough to do. So, but we'll get to that, when it comes. And that seems like a year away from now.
What has AT Perry shown in practice this week?
Look, we had some exposure with him. I obviously wasn't there, but Pete Carmichael, and we noticed him in his rookie year last year on film. Cody was there. They were all a part of that process. And so we weren't going to claim him, but man, we sure would like to, recruit him to come to the practice squad. And he's long with good hands. Too early, though, just, in a short period of time. Had a chance to meet him. And, again, a young player we want to develop.
Sean, do you have a prognosis on Reynolds?
None now. Look, 2 o'clock, you guys will get all of that. I don't want to go through the.
I guess there's a report.
Yeah, I know. But if I hit Josh, then I have to hit Luke, and then I have to. Yeah. So nothing right now, nothing to update, but fair enough.
In terms, though, generally, the
No,
offense.
go ahead.
I mean, you're going to have some different pieces on the offensive line. How do you kind of feel about
We'll see.
it being shuffled?
We'll see.
If it is shuffled. How do you
Yeah,
feel about
we'll be ready to go. We'll be ready to go.
Sean, just could you speak on the value that Trevor Smith has provided on special teams since he's been here?
Man, there's a play last week. So when the other team punts, a lot of times you put 2 hold-up guys to one side and you single, and then sometimes you double both. I think that one of the hardest things to do in football is to be a gunner and fight 2 blocks. That's tough. And so he's on the single side holding up one and on Marvin's return. And one of the second hardest things to do is to be a single and take that guy out, because there's a lot of freedom in what he's doing. But he's fast. He had a good return on the kickoff. With these new rules, those guys were kicking to cover and then kicking away from Marvin. And so now that was the first game where we saw those true dirty balls, and that was like Phil Negro. But the positive is, if you field it in time, like, man, it's on you right now, and you're catching it at the 8 or 10. So I thought we handled that part well. He's been real productive and real important to us, to answer your question, and I'm glad we have him.
Some of the things that you talked about with Jim Harbaugh's team, running the football, winning the turnover battle, playing good defense, kind of apply to you guys?
I said the exact same thing to our team 2 days ago. Said the exact same thing to our team 2 days ago. And so we just have to know what's important in this game, how to win this game.
Can you speak of the move to make active Kroll instead of Dolchic's, and what's going to happen on Sunday?
No, I'm not going to talk about Sunday. I'm just going to talk about that decision, and that's a good question. I kept seeing Lucas, with some things during the week, and I wanted to change it up, and now he helped us a little bit in the kicking game. They both run well, and yet I wanted to make sure that, I want both, because both of them have similarities. I wanted to make sure Greg knew that, hey, this is week to week, and so we'll see this week the direction we go. But both of them are similar in their strengths.
Sean, the other day was the first time I think y'all hit the landing zone and came out to the 20, and these new rules, I guess it's weird that it's a novel.
So that's the other day, it came up, there's a penalty, we're kicking from the 50. Now, if we kick a touchback, it goes to the 30. You can't mortar kick really anymore, because it really doesn't make sense, because no one moves until it's caught anyway. Now, if you kick it out of bounds, it goes to the 25, and then you'd say, well, we realized some penalty yardage there. And so I walked over to the official, and I said, we're going to kick this out of bounds, and you're going to throw a flag, and 72,000 people aren't going to know what just happened and why it's at the 25-yard line. And That's just one of those unique nuances to the way it's currently set up. You know, in other words, maybe in the offseason, the out of bounds will be the same as, you know, and you just say, hey, the landing zone's the landing zone. But out of bounds is different than deep, and I think that's a little quirky.
Is it because it was at the 50, the kickoff, that
Just take the penalty, yeah.
out of the bounds was the 25?
Yep, we'll do the math when we kick it from the 35. And we kick it out of bounds. Where's it go?
40?
Right? And so it's just one of those things that I think everyone was puzzled. But 25 start, it was call it a 5-yard penalty then.
So is it a dynamic penalty?
That's a great question. It was a dynamic penalty. Thank you. All right.